you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, folks, it is September 11th, Freewheeling Friday. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. You can follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit right there. Sorry about that mic action. All right, it's the 19th anniversary of the attacks on September 11, 2001, the terror attacks on the World Trade Center, New York, really, and the Pentagon, and God knows really where else, right? So today is a special day for some of you guys, many of you guys. For those of us who still remember that day, who are from the Northeast, we're in the Northeast. Laura lost her cousin that day. We all had friends and families impacted. If you lived in that area, which we did specifically, so it brings up a question though, which I have, before we get into the Q&A here, which I have to address. What would that day have looked like if the police, if the NYPD were defunded? Oh, Lord. What would it have, and there's some guy on Twitter actually goes, oh, the, public school systems have been defunded for years and there are fire departments, you're an idiot. The FDNY was grossly overwhelmed. Cops were playing the role of everything, first responders from first aid, medical attention, to playing the role of firefighters, because everybody was just doing everybody's job, trying their hardest to do their own. They were running into burning buildings and collapsing buildings, and many died. Do you think the social workers would run out there and pull you and drag you out of a burning, collapsing building that's structurally not sound? You better not bet your life on it. You don't get to pick and choose. Well, there's a disaster. We use the police for them. No, you got rid of them. They're not the National Guard. You don't call them up. Some of these, and I don't mean this in the derogatory term, I mean this in the legitimate term. Events like this and everything we've been witnessing over the last several months, especially throughout the summer of love. It really shows when you look back on a day like 9/11, for those of us who remember and were in the tri-state area. Ideas like defunding the police are mentally handicapped. You're retarded in the truest sense of the word retarded if you support that. I don't mean that like, mentally like a disability.
Not like my brother.
I mean, you're like retarded, as in there's something wrong with your brain. You were stunted. You had bad parenting. You had poor education. Maybe you are educated, but you were poorly educated, or you're just ignorant and you don't have very many real world life experiences. But a day like today, they're always during these memorials, they are always trying not to be overtly political, and that's a good thing. Mike Pence and Karen Pence, warm reception over there. Everybody supporting the police. Because they know what it means to lose a loved one because they lost them in service. Some people that are there, they know what it's like to be saved by a law enforcement officer who gave their life for yours. I think we just think too much in the abstract. A lot of these dumb, like I said, poorly educated, mentally handicapped ideas come from these halls of academia where they're theory. They're not based in reality because these people don't really live in a real world. Just think about that when we are listening to names being rattled off today, like we do every year. Think about what a catastrophe it would be if they actually got their way, folks. What a catastrophe it would be. That shouldn't be partisan. The families who lost their loved ones, they don't really care about, they don't really care about partisanship. I mean, this is common sense. Again, you're just because you went to college does not mean you're educated or smart, I should say. And when I look at the polls that we've conducted, it is the white educated liberal who supports this stupid stuff. Even minorities, younger minorities tend to support it, but middle age, if anything, basically 30 and above. It just goes downhill. It's propped up by 18 and 29s and poorly educated white liberals. That's it. That's why it's like 60-something opposed in our Epoch Times poll, 60-something opposed to like 20% support. That's even too, that's a sad commentary in and of itself. All right, let's get into, so I do see some of your questions. I just want to talk a little bit about Michigan yesterday before we dive into some of those questions. All right. I did want to do some in New Hampshire. I'll keep checking, but when the database updates, they go down for a scheduled maintenance, and that's where the voter file is right now. So I'll go back and I'll check it because I wanted to use it to answer some of your questions. And then also too, when we were recapping these demographic trends, I wanted to show you what that means for some other states. All right. And hopefully that comes back online. But Donald Trump went to Michigan yesterday. He had a huge rally. Yeah, they kicked that reporter out. See, she was like, I was thrown out. You were thrown out because you're fake news. Laura has, she didn't, not that she didn't believe me. She just didn't see it firsthand. So she really didn't know what I was talking about. I'd go there and cover the rallies. And then she would be like, well, on Twitter, they're saying there's nobody there. How many people are there? And I'd pan with the camera, look. And it was flooded, packed. But what they do is they take pictures while other speakers are out there. The place will not get totally packed because people are out and about socializing. There's usually things to do there, things to eat there, things to watch there, things to buy there. So they're out and about socializing. But when it's time for the man of the hour to come out, you see how many people are really there, because the nosebleed seats are filled and the standing area is filled. That's just how a Trump rally typically goes. And it wasn't until I brought Laura out to look at, and I think her first one was Tampa, right?
Yeah.
And we saw I showed her. I mean, I was just like, watch Jim Acosta, watch him, right? You remember? And he knew how many people were outside, and he was specifically panning around. So was that other fake news tool from the Washington Post. They were specifically taking shots, right? And then Jim Acosta was faking being, remember that one? He was faking being assaulted. It was ridiculous. And it didn't really pan out. So eventually he abandoned it. But we watched him get the whole thing ready. Like, are you ready? I'm going to go. I'm going to say, something about CNN. I'm provoke a response over here. He's a piece of trash. This is production news, So anyway, they tossed out this chode of a reporter because she was pulling games like that. You know what? The hell with them. To hell with them. Barack Obama threw out the Daily Caller guys. Barack Obama banned Fox News from press conference calls. If you weren't going to toe the line and do what Barack Obama wanted, you weren't allowed anywhere near the candidate or the president. And the same thing goes with their candidates. In 2016, the Trump campaign had no problem letting us cover them. Hillary Clinton didn't want us anywhere near her, right? Nowhere near her. It's that way for Joe Biden, too. They don't respond to media requests, unless you're from ABC, CBS, NBC, right? CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Politico, the trash. The corporate trash. They won't let you anywhere near the candidate. And if he wins, they won't let alternative media anywhere near the White House press pool. It's just not going to happen. Reporters in the corporate swamp, the corporate media swamp, they're all right with that. They don't mind being roped off like a bunch of cattle, because if Joe Biden wins, they'll go back to having to start work at 10 o'clock in the morning, like they did with Barack Obama, like they did with Bill Clinton, right? They hate it when a Republican wins because they're always up early as hell doing their job. That's the truth. That is the truth. Bill Clinton strolled out there late as hell. Barack Obama, you were lucky if you saw him at 9:30. Seriously. All right? I mean, it's just that they want to go back to partying all night, more incestuous relationships, and more meaning than one, right? Anyway, so Trump goes out there and he's just having a great time. And the supporters clearly having a great time. He's got a huge crowd. His speech, he always goes off, but his speech was a very good speech. All right. And we talked about this. I think Michigan's going to be hard for him to hold. I do. I'll have more polling data to back that up. So out of the Rust Belt poll, Michigan is a big part of the sample. I mean, it's 400 alone in Michigan, minimum. It probably will be more, but what we do is and I'll show you how we design the survey. It's really cool. So each state is a target, and each state is represented the way it is, and then its overall share of the vote in that region. It's going to be really cool. But in any event, then Biden, what did they, seriously, Laura, there were more Trump supporters. Biden had an event the day before. There were more Trump supporters outside protesting the Biden event than there were Biden supporters inside the event. I kid you not. There was like nobody there. There was like a handful. I mean, a handful. You could count them on both hands.
What did that guy say? 2
Yeah. It was like maybe 2-4 people are in there. Remember? Oh my goodness. Meanwhile, there was a slew of Trump supporters out there, but that's not their strategy. Their strategy is to use the media and let the media tell their story. Like now they're not even hiding it. Like I told you, this is the way it was going to be. All right. Anyway, he sits down with Jake Tapper because his little crony didn't have such a great time with Brett Baer. I mean, it was so bad. It was so bad. And we'll play that maybe after the break. But he sits down with Jake Tapper because his whole idea here, folks, is that he's trying to do an America First. He's plagiarizing Donald Trump's America First economic nationalism. So Joe Biden, who supported NAFTA, he supported every trade deal. And we have a chart on this. I should have pulled this up, but we have a chart on this where you can look at how many trade deals, which ones he supported, what their impact was on American jobs. Joe Biden supported every job-killing trade deal since he was in office. Every single one. No joke. And when Tapper asked him, because he tried this before too with Obama, when he was Obama's running mate, and even before when he was running against Obama in 2008, which didn't go very far, he was saying, I did vote for NAFTA, but now I'm against it. I did. Yes, I did. But now I'm against it. And people would always be like, all right, that doesn't really make any sense, you know. And of course, when he had a chance, he spearheaded TPP, folks, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So you have Trump running on all these, and now he has a record, and he can say, I replaced NAFTA, the job-killing NAFTA from 1994 that Joe Biden voted for, and I replaced it with the USMCA, which he admits in an interview with Jake Tapper is better than NAFTA. And Tapper, I gotta hand it to him, actually. I mean, sometimes Jake Tapper, forgets that he's a shill, and he goes back to being a journalist. Just let's watch this. I'll probably get look, they're copyright striking the hell out of me, but it's not real strikes because we cite it. We keep it in a certain, you're allowed to use clips as long as you credit them, as long as there's certain lengths and you provide other meaningful commentary with them. You're allowed to do that, but they are allowed to make it so you can't monetize them or show them in certain countries. Well, we're not monetizing these things anyway, but they are doing their damnedest to keep inside the numbers out of view as many people as possible, right? Everybody. So here we go. Copyright strike coming. Here's Joe Biden with Jake Tapper, and then I'll show you the other interview with Brett Baer.
Something else he did is he renegotiated NAFTA.
He did.
He renegotiated NAFTA. Now, when you ran for president and when Barack Obama ran for president, you both said you would renegotiate NAFTA. You didn't. He did. Nancy Pelosi said that the USMCA, which President Trump signed into law, is a, quote, victory for America's workers. Does he deserve credit for that?
No, I think, remember, he wasn't the one that pushed that particular one that passed. The House amended the bill so he couldn't.
He signed it.
By the way, it's a big deal, though. Here's what they amended. He was giving pharma a way out, giving them a gigantic break, just like he's doing now with pharma. They're building plants overseas and getting tax breaks for it. That's what it was about with him. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do.
He renegotiated NAFTA and you didn't, is the point. I mean,
because we had a Republican Congress that wouldn't go along with us renegotiating it.
But doesn't he deserve some credit for that? It's better. The USMCA is better than NAFTA.
It is better than NAFTA. But look what.
Oh, please. He had a Republican Congress, so that's why. Listen, folks, that's a bunch of malarkey. The fact of the matter is Donald Trump brought Republicans along. They didn't support that. Many of them are still free traders. Many of them. But he has changed the party to a good, solid degree. But they're not all for. They would have loved the TPP, many of these guys. We had a story on, alone, Paul Ryan's benefactors alone, if you add them up and look at Ryan's biggest K Street people, it's in the billions how much these people spent when you combine all of those entities to try to get TPP. What they lost, what was coming to them. They spent tens of millions, probably more. I don't have it in front of me. I should get the article and put it up. But they stood to lose billions collectively, billions of dollars. And he had a supermajority for the first 2 years of their administration. Democrats didn't want to give him a win. The polling was bad. So they tinkered with it around the edges. And by the way, Trump went after Big Pharma another way. It is true that there are some Republicans who didn't want Big Pharma to be touched, to be hurt by that. That's true. But he went after it another way. Joe Biden had supermajorities in Congress when they were elected in 2008. When they took office in January 2009, they took it with supermajorities. The truth is, they chose to cram Obamacare down the throats of Americans when it was unpopular, instead of keeping a campaign promise to a broad majority of supportive Americans. That's the truth. And then they continued with even worse trade deals. Korea, TPP. That is such a load. So earlier too in that interview, Tapper says, why do you think in this county alone, you guys carried it twice and then it swung hard and voted 14 points for Donald Trump? Why do you think so many of these voters abandoned the Democratic Party? Do you think you took them for granted? And he says, yeah, I think we took them for granted a little bit, but also too, Donald Trump really used racism quite a bit. So let me get this straight, Joe. These voters voted for a black man at the top of the ticket twice, but somehow for those 8 years, they were racists. And then they only showed their true colors in 2016. Knock yourself out with that stuff. I think Michigan is one of the harder states, if not the hardest, for Donald Trump to hold on to. But Joe Biden is like, if he was subjected to a real campaign, like real campaign standards, he'd murder himself in all of these states. He would kill himself in all of these states. But he's not. And the media, like I've been telling you for weeks, they want a quasi third world kind of election. They want to hide Joe Biden. He's a generic kind of candidate. They know he's not going to go out and draw crowds. They're not even trying to do it. They're trying to tell the story of Joe Biden through the media and anti-Trump through the media. All right. And they don't intend to sit for any hard interviews. They get all these softball questions in easy interviews from the mainstream media. They go and they send a lackey to speak to Bret Baier yesterday. And this is what happens when he gets even, because Bret wasn't very hard on him. He asked him legitimate questions, but not as hard as they could have been, or would have been, by the way, on Donald Trump, because he was harder on the Trump surrogate. He was. But he asked legit questions, and this guy, it was hard to watch because it was so bad. All right?
What specifically would the former vice president have done?
Well, let's get a few things straight. The vice president was not against the travel ban, first of all. Second of all, let's remember an important Brett. Let's remember an important distinction. Donald Trump was the president of the United States. It was on Donald Trump.
I'm asking you if Joe Biden was the president of the United States.
It was on Donald Trump to take action to actually protect the American people.
He closed the travel to China.
Joe Biden wrote an op-ed in USA Today in January warning that the threat was coming. Joe Biden said in February that Donald Trump should get people on the ground in China. What did Donald Trump do? Donald Trump was praising China. Donald Trump was praising President Xi's response, saying that they had it under control, when clearly he knew, as we now know from Bob Woodward, they did not have it under control. He should have been protecting the American people. He should have been putting real plans in place.
So let me just clarify.
Actually confront this incredibly dangerous
threat.
Let
me just clarify. You're saying that Joe Biden was for closing down travel from China when the president did it?
Joe Biden has been clear, and I can send you the fact checks if they're helpful, Brett. Joe Biden has been clear that he was not against that travel ban.
But he was for it?
Joe Biden has been clear about this, Brett. I can send you the fact checks if they're helpful. This has been fact checked into oblivion.
Okay, I'm just asking you the question. You're saying yes, he was for the China travel ban when the president implemented it 48 hours after receiving that briefing.
The important thing about the travel ban,
yes or no? Yes or no?
And I know, Brett, I know that you all like to cite the travel ban. I know the president
No, the
likes
president
to cite the
does. That's why I'm bringing it up. Obviously, it's going to be in the debate.
Brett, hold on. The important thing to know about the travel ban is that even after the president implemented that travel ban, says that he implemented it, tens of thousands of people came in and out of the country.
I'm going to take it that you're not going to answer that question. You're going to send me some fact checks.
What was Donald Trump doing, Brett? He was ignoring the virus.
Let's continue to fact check.
He was praising China. Go ahead.
Let's continue to fact check. Here's what Dr. Fauci said when asked if there was a discrepancy with what the president said privately and what the president said publicly.
I may not be tuned in to the right thing that they're talking about, but I didn't really see any discrepancies between what he told us and what we told him and what he ultimately came out publicly and said.
So is Dr. Fauci wrong?
Brett, I know that you all are working overtime to try to find excuses for this president.
This guy is a cornball, all right? And he attacks Brett's character. Brett is a never Trumper. The idea that Bret Baier would be a surrogate for the Trump campaign, working overtime to find excuses for this president, it's ludicrous, it's silly, and it's immature. But this is what everybody should, I think it was Jack Posobiec, too. He nailed it. He said, you know what, watching this interview, it confirms to me that Biden's campaign is being run by a bunch of young wussies. little, whiny little babies that are immature and they're amateurs. Without the big media hate machine and without the media handicap, Joe Biden's campaign would be widely viewed as one of the worst run campaigns. Yeah, his name is TJ Ducklow, okay? It would be one of the worst campaigns that we've ever seen. Now, back to what he said as a matter of truth here, okay? Let's just set the record straight, because he kept saying he refused to say whether Joe Biden was for or against the travel ban, all right? He alluded that he was for it. And he kept saying, I'll send you the fact checks. This has been debunked now so many times. The fact checker sounded like Hillary Clinton. Remember Hillary Clinton in the second and third debates? Fact checkers, get your fact checkers going. All right. The fact checkers have done this. He's lying. Joe Biden said, all right, on the 27th, Trump met with the coronavirus. He started the meeting of the coronavirus task force. On the 31st, he announced the restrictions from China, the travel restrictions. Biden's top advisor, his coronavirus advisor, all right, and his name is Klein, right? Yeah, Klein. Yeah. He said, all right, that, quote, it is, he opposed them, and he said that they were unnecessary. And that same day, Joe Biden attacked Trump's travel ban, calling it hysterical xenophobia and fear mongering. And he went to Twitter. I mean, the tweets are still there, folks. Stop the xenophobic fear mongering. Be honest, take responsibility, do your job. And then on February, that's March 18th, on February 1st, we are in the midst of a crisis with the coronavirus. We need to lead the way with science, not Donald Trump's record of hysteria, xenophobia, and fear-mongering. He is the worst possible person to lead our country through a global health emergency. All right, so which is it? Is it Bob Woodward's version of events where he lied to people and tried to play it down? Or is it Joe Biden's version of events where he was, trying to panic everybody and instill fear, and he was using, he was xenophobic? This is the tale of the tape here, folks. This is
coronavirus emanated from China. A national emergency, worldwide alerts. The American people need to have a president who they can trust what he says about it, that he is going to act rationally about it. In moments like this is where the credibility of a president is most needed, as he explains what we should and should not do. This is no time for Donald Trump's record of hysterical xenophobia, and fear-mongering.
Right. He can't even read it right. So his speech was like just re-quoting what he had written on Twitter, or what his 25-year-old aides who run his social media account, because Joe Biden does not use his social media. Let's get real, folks. Joe Biden doesn't do anything himself. He's totally lost and clueless. He's lost in the sauce. That's another thing that Ducklow got so mad over. Duck. He's a duck. He's a duck, all right. That is a duck. All right. He is a little duck. That's a perfect name. All right, because when he was confronted too over Joe Biden's reading of the teleprompter, does he use the teleprompter? Does Joe Biden have trouble, carrying the day? And he just attacking him. You're a shill. You're carrying a water. You're a stooge. Basically just calling him a stooge. This is legitimate line of questioning when you see him going like this, and when you see him saying blah 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 blah. End of quote, folks. End of quote. He's reading right off the teleprompter, and he doesn't even know when to stop. All right. And Klein said, by the way, on that same day, he opposed the travel ban. That was Biden's top public health guy, top coronavirus, his own task force. He said that it was, quote, premature at this moment. All right. And said, I don't think we need it. It's premature at this moment. So look, the media is going to help him. They're going to help him. But they're at the point now where they're even citing fact checkers, and many of whom have done the right thing and debunked it. The same thing with the hoax with the Bob Woodward press conference that got heated the other day. A reporter actually screamed at Kayleigh McEnany as she was walking off the stage, the White House press secretary, as she's walking off the stage. She goes, why did the president call the coronavirus a hoax? That has been debunked by Snopes, who used a mixed rating, but that's because they parsed out what Trump actually said at the rally and then what he meant. And then the false rating was that he referred to the coronavirus as a hoax. He said this, they will use this as their new hoax, the handling of this as their new hoax. Check your facts. Politifact.org, politifact.org, or right? Factchecker, sorry, .org. And Glenn Kessler at the Washington Post gave it 4 Pinocchios. And yet this guy's referring to fact checks. I mean, you can look at the fact check. They've been over it. He said it. This is a bald-faced lying. Hold on.
Checking the fact checker. I really love to know who are these people, because I would like to check the fact checker and see the reality of the story. Yeah.
Well, you can knock yourself out and do it if you want, because we are fact checkers. And we just don't do it as often as we should. And with all of this going on, and just for people, like Google, Facebook, there's stuff that goes in a website if you're fact checking, and it's called schema, and they're like tags that go into the source of your website. So it says, this is the claim, this is the rating, and that's how you get the little cool fact check widget. All right. The claim review widget. So when you Google search, that's what pops up. We've done some on Ilhan Omar, which, by the way, we should flash back and go over. That was one of our first fact checks. Ilhan Omar saying that the Muslim, that CARE, some people did something. So CARE was established because after 9/11, there were a lot of attacks on Muslim civil rights. So CARE was established as a civil rights group in response to that discrimination and bigotry post 9/11. That is simply false. All right. So we should ramp up the fact checkers. We should ramp up the fact checks on PPD.
I understand that we fact check. All I want to be behind that person as they're fact checking to turn around and be like, you're lying. You're lying.
They would probably take our fact check status away if we did something like that. I'm just telling you that, folks. That's 100%. They're coming at us hard lately. They're coming at us hard. And thanks to James O'Keefe's whistleblower, somehow we're in Google News. We are a Google News index site. And yet somehow the whistleblower for Project Veritas, who went to James O'Keefe, that paperwork clearly showed that we were shadow banned on Google News. So that shows you that what they're up to is something sinister. How do you know that? Because if it was legitimate and they thought that we ever published fake news or something that was untrustworthy, first of all, PPD follows the trust indicators, standards of disclosure. They're all at the bottom of the page. Editorial guidelines, funding, ownership, ethics policies, policies on unnamed sources, you name it, it's all in there. All right. We follow all of that. And if they ever thought, we've never been fact checked, never. If they ever thought that we were legitimately fake news, they would remove us from the index. But they're up to something sinister because they know they can't do that out of merit. On the merit, they can't do it. So they shadow banned us. So when you go into the newsstand, the Google Newsstand app, and you try to search for a story, we could have just published the most detailed story on it. You're not going to find us. All right. And actually, I got called a Russian stooge because I talked to RT about it when RT called us. I talked to RT about it. I gave him a comment for their article. And I challenged them. I said, I challenge you to go to People's Pundit Daily, search away, find a single story that's not true.
Please do.
Because we're a data journalism site. It's not subjective. I mean, it's not subjective. It's objective. We don't cover news like that. I mean, we once in a while, we will get, the story on Michael Cohen, why Michael Cohen really flipped on Donald Trump. We'll get stuff like juicy little things like that and we'll put it up, but that's just not what we do. So I'm like, oh my God, he talked to RT. He talked to the Russians. See? Like talking to Russians is a crime or something. And first of all, she wasn't Russian. She was a Western European journalist. It's ridiculous. I know they're, funded Russia today. I get it, Yeah, Barnes is a civil rights attorney. Yes, he is. And actually, Barnes and I have known each other for years now because Barnes and I have created I created the database, but through working with Barnes, we never get, we got a lot of civil rights cases. None of them had anything no national media attention. So this is how you know, and Barnes said this to me years ago and he was right. This is how you know they're scumbags trying to divide us, because we would have legitimate civil rights abuses, legitimate cases against police brutality, with police brutality. They didn't care because it was an open and shut story. They want something that's a little bit more blurred and provocative. Yes. So whites and blacks can start yelling at each other, the left versus right, the rich versus poor. They like to create those divides. You have something you want to throw in?
So just to go with what you were saying, I just saw a video, right? There was a white cop arresting a black gentleman. Black gentleman turns around and starts beating up the cop, right? All of a sudden, a bunch of black gentlemen attack the black guy that was beating up the cop. Now, then they held him down while the white cop got up and put the handcuffs on. Where's the story all over the news where the community comes together, as the black community comes together to get the one black individual who is disrupting their community and helping and assisting the white cop? You will not see it plastered everywhere, but of course, it doesn't go with the narrative that they want, the division.
Same thing with Ferguson. So you never really heard the story about why the grand jury refused to return an indictment against Officer Darren Wilson. It's very easy, and there's the old expression, you can indict a ham sandwich. It's very easy to get an indictment. You never got that story that African-American jurors, it was a multiracial jury or grand jury, but there were a representative portion of African-American jurors on the grand jury, and a witness that, first of all, the witness who first said, and that was Michael Brown's friend, that he said he put his hand, who started the hands up, don't shoot thing. If you read the Justice Department report, he collapsed under questioning. He changed his story multiple times, and then he basically admitted that he fabricated it. All right. There was I don't want to out him, but there was one witness who was a somebody in the community. He had a lot to put on the line. He could have just caved and done the easy thing. Or they could have just caved and done the easy thing. And basically said, Officer Wilson, he exceeded his authority. Brown was trying to get away, blah, 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 blah. The forensics didn't support it. And this particular witness was devastating to the old hands up, don't shoot argument. It clearly showed that Michael Brown was assaulting Darren Wilson and trying to relieve him of his firearm. Folks, if you're white and you try to take a cop's gun, you're going to get blown away. I don't really care what color you are.
Because it's white on white.
Yeah, and you won't hear about it in the news. You'll never hear about it. But anyway, that's how Barnes and I actually know each other. He used my polling as a reference in 2016 to place one of the biggest political bets ever. And Robert Barnes may be the biggest winner in political gambling ever. I'm talking about like a lump sum. There are some rules, of course. There's and I'm not, a political bettor. Laura says we want our 10%, Robert. He's done, gave that 10% along with doing work. I know we're busting his chops, but but the bottom line is we did really interesting work together where we would profile jurors, and then build a database where it gets to a certain point where you can actually assign a score on certain cases. So you present a certain scenario and you can give some kind of predictive value of whether a juror is going to go your way or not. It's really cool to use for the process called voir dire, which is the process of jury selection, which Roger Stone's attorney blew very badly. All right. And we've seen this now a number of times where, it should never have even have gotten this far. But there's some great questions in the queue here. All right. About Michigan. And there is no doubt, if you guys go to, and I'll link it here, I'll get it. There probably are some vote totals that needed to be updated, but generally speaking, we got it. This is inside Donald Trump's Rust Belt Revolution. Okay. And this is going to go to answering a bunch of questions I saw on there. I don't know if Periscope's going to give it to you guys. Looks like they did. Looks like everybody. All right. If you guys go back and read that, I wrote that on November 20th, 2016. And we took a look to see, because there was so many people saying, oh, turnout. It was turnout. Democratic turnout. Hillary could have won if we would have gotten more, this out, more that out. The truth of the matter is Donald Trump just beat her. He beat her among voters that voted for Barack Obama. All right. He beat her among voters that voted for Barack Obama twice, not just once. All right. He just killed her. Iowa was one of the huge swings. He took every single county in the East, but if you look at the one, and this is why I'm bringing this up, I saw some of the questions. If you look at Michigan, most pundits, who are now largely discredited, they should have been back then, right? They're blaming low turnout for the Great Lakes state going red for the first time since 1988. But if you did dig a bit deeper, that explanation doesn't totally suffice. And this is coming from me, who thinks that, yes, there is an argument for Democrats to make about Michigan. The other states, there is not. They just lost. All right? And that's, if you read this, I will conclusively demonstrate they just lost. There is an argument, though, in Michigan. He carried 12 counties that voted to reelect Barack Obama in 2012, including Monroe, Bay, Eaton, Saginaw, and Macomb. In Macomb County, voter turnout actually rose 4% compared to the 1.1% increase statewide from 2012. So it was actually up. It just wasn't up in the right areas, which they're focusing on Wayne alone. But if you look at Macomb, it was up. It was up 4%. It was up more than the statewide vote. Mrs. Clinton only won 8 counties: Genesee, Ingham, Kalamazoo, Marquette. I hate this one. Muskegon, Oakland, Washtenaw, and Wayne. All right. Oakland, folks, is typically a little bit more Republican on the congressional level because it's the northern part of Oakland. When you get down now, Oakland used to be much redder, but when you get down in the central and southern parts of Oakland, you are actually getting parts of Detroit and the suburbs and the metro burbs bleeding into it. All right. So, however, in the Democratic stronghold of Wayne, the state's largest population-wise, he was able to hold down the Democratic margin as he ran up record spreads in rural areas. All right. She had a 289,000 vote lead at the time of writing this in Wayne. Mrs. Clinton got about 79,000 fewer votes than Barack Obama and roughly 53,000 fewer votes than John Kerry in 2004. Trump, on the other hand, got almost 15,000 more votes than Governor Romney did in that area. Okay. So at first glance, it would appear that the Democratic candidate could overcome Trump's margin in the rest of the state if they perform at historic levels in Wayne County alone. Trump only carried the state by, 10,000 votes. But that conclusion does make a little bit of a foolish assessment. And it assumes that the working class and suburban voters that were left on the table and did not vote in 2016 will just be Biden voters. Right? Where's the weatherman? I didn't have Michigan wrapped up here. Let me see if the give it a bit, guys. I'll try to get the weatherman Rich out, all right? But in any event, they can change. And I said, we'll have to watch new registrations and party preferences closely over the next 4 years. In fact, Republicans have made gains in Michigan. They have. I'm talking about as far as voter registration trends. It's just that it does look like Joe Biden is doing better in some of these areas that Mrs. Clinton just did poorly in. Here's the problem. If Trump does even better in some of these other working class areas, which it looks like he is going to do, and these are Democratic areas, Biden's Wayne County vote share still has to be significant. And it's total votes too that matters. This, folks, is why during the primary last month or month and a half ago, they would not report the vote totals on election night in Wayne County. They did not want you to expect votes to be counted on election night. Anyone who tells you that Democrats in Wayne County are not going to cheat is a liar. And I'm talking about in the media or in the pundit class. They're conditioning you to not expect election results in a timely, developed nation kind of manner. They want you to get used to third world, corrupt, vote holding, vote stuffing. And that's a reality. And there are plenty of those votes there for them to overtake Trump's margin. So that's Trump's main problem. And they have a Democratic governor who absolutely hates Donald Trump, which is why, you know, when we tell you things are not the same as they used to be when it comes to like potential fraud, the governors have a lot of power. That's how Rick Scott was able to stop Broward from doing what they were doing in 2018. They have an enormous amount of power. Governor Whitmore, first of all, she's corrupt. Second of all, she's a rabid ideologue. And third of all, she will not stop them. She hates Donald Trump. All right. So if you're worried about that, be a poll watcher. All right. But anyway, Michigan is really the only one of those states where Democrats did have an argument that they could take it back. And, or, you know, if there were more voters, they would never have lost it in the first place. They at least have some of that argument that does hold a little bit of water. But in the rest of those states, he just won. So in Pennsylvania, it was particularly impressive. But remember, in Pennsylvania, 52 of the 67 counties statewide are classified as Appalachia. All right. So it's a very different kind of state, even though people try to put it on par. All right. Yeah. I mean, Whitmer's, I mean, really, I don't know what's the
questions.
yeah. All right. Let's get a few of them. Let's get a few of them before we take our first break. All right. Let's go to Madam Laura for the first question in the queue.
All right. Simple Salmon wants to know what has become of our republic.
You should buy Our Virtuous Republic, The Forgotten Clause, and the American Social Contract. Listen, it is not if you guys follow how I write very lighthearted on PPD, and other places that I have written. I've written in a lot of different publications. I write very lighthearted. I get a lot of compliments about it. Our Virtuous Republic is not that. It is heavy. It was a thesis.
It's not heavy.
It's heavy. It's heavy theory. It was a thesis, which basically the thesis statement, if you want to call it that, the thesis that I expanded into a book is that this was a republic. It was founded as a republic, and the Constitution, it was designed for people who were moral and virtuous. How can I put this? Their goal in life was self-sufficiency and to pursue virtue, to be a benefit to their fellow man. We have become a country. We have become a people that the Constitution just was not designed to govern. And that there's a mathematical equation, really, where the less virtue there is in society, the less, what Washington said, religion and morality are indispensable supports to a republic. The less of that there is, then the more need there is for government intervention and roles in society. Of course, that means bigger government, which means less freedom. So the entire relationship is inverse, right? Less virtue, less morality, less religion leads to more tyranny. All right. Because they just, you start to sacrifice, like Jefferson said, for every right, there is an equal duty. All right. So you have a right to defend yourself, but you have a duty to learn about guns and how to defend yourself. Okay. That is what Jefferson meant when he said that. When you give up those duties and you kind of shirk them, pass them off and delegate them to subcontract them out to the government, then what you're doing is forfeiting those rights as an actual inalienable right. All right. So, and that leads to a greater role for government in society, which of course leads to less freedom. And a big hit for the Republic came with the log rolling deal during the Progressive era, the log rolling deal with the 16th and 17th Amendments. All right. For those who don't know, the 16th Amendment passed a progressive income tax. States had to tax citizens before this. The federal government could not directly tax you. It was illegal. It was unconstitutional. They had tried multiple times to do it, big government progressives, and they were struck down repeatedly by the Supreme Court and other courts. All right. So they needed to pass a constitutional amendment to get around direct apportionment tax, right? And then they got that along with the 17th Amendment in a log rolling deal, meaning you scratch your back, I scratch yours. And the 17th Amendment established direct senatorial elections. Back before that, the state legislator, who you voted for, they live in your neighborhoods. They're even closer to you than your representative in the U.S. House. They could be your neighbor. They could be your pastor. They could be your boss. They could be your worker. You could be, they were part-time jobs. They were not full-time jobs. They were part-time. Many of them still are. And they chose the senator. They launched this massive fraud campaign. The Phillips treason in the Senate. It was a series. And it was basically the argument that these legislators are corrupt. They send corrupt people. You have no say over it. It simply isn't true. When you do the math, it simply is not true. And worst of all, it led to, and I think I can actually pull this up. I have this. Laura's always like, and somebody said, where's Weatherman Rich? I can actually pull up this Citizen. If I type in Citizen, I'll probably find it. What it did was really create the career politician. Prior to the 17th Amendment, the average tenure for a U.S. senator was extremely low. All right? Extremely low compared to now. And I'm going to show you that on a graph, as a matter of fact, right now. Because this is like what happened to the Republic. This is what happened to it. This is a big deal. Because throughout this period, they used the guilds. You guys know what the Gilded Era was, okay? The Gilded Age, where like the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, the big men of business, right? The big name of business. They were basically smeared to Kingdom Come, one man, one vote, which turned into, it was just ridiculous. The gold lines here, well, actually, you go back to Munn v. Illinois, where this led to rent-seeking behavior because courts were stepping in and saying that they were giving them a little bit more power to regulate commerce, all right? Here's the Wilson-Gorman Tariff Act. That was where they tried again to get around the unconstitutionality of the federal government taxing citizens directly. And then Pollock v. Farmers Loan and Trust was the final straw. Here's the 16th, 17th Amendments when they were ratified. All right. And this is the transition incomplete. You could see in the U.S. Senate, which is in red, average tenure exploded. It exploded. It was actually tracking down. 4.8 years was the average year for a senator to be in office before this log rolling deal. And then it exploded. And the last one I updated, because I haven't looked at the Congressional Review data, it's 10.1 years for a U.S. senator and 8.6 for a member of the U.S. House. And one followed the other, because essentially what it did was make it cheaper for rent seekers, meaning special interests, to buy favored legislation, because Washington works by seniority. And the longer somebody is there, the more powerful they get. That's number one. And also, it was becoming a real pain in the ass for these special interests to keep buying a new senator every time the state legislature pulled one back. They would have to lobby all over again. They'd have to schmooze them all over again. It is, without that seniority, you don't know whether a subsequent Congress is going to undo your favored legislation. They may repeal it. So without getting too much into the weeds, throughout that time period, tenure exploded, and the concentration of wealth, which during the Gilded Era that they slammed, that was in the Midwest. It was all over the place. The concentration of wealth went right to D.C. and New York. That's what this led to, because special interests consolidated their power, consolidated their influence. They bled Americans dry. All right? And that's power, guys. That's power. Revenue, that's power. All right. So, I mean, I could go on this topic forever. But the truth of the matter is, to circle back to the relationship between virtue, right, and freedom, they delegated their responsibility. They got duped. One man, one vote. They delegated their responsibility to the federal government. And it's tragic. It's tragic. And the fake arguments against how the original design were, I can't go into them now, but I completely dismantle them. They are not true. The idea that, the corruption thing and the, sometimes there would be an open seat. I mean, they had a slew of them. They were all bogus. None of them held up to empirical scrutiny. All right. So let's go into the next one, love.
Okay, Brad Smith.
Oh, let me spot your mic.
Sorry. All right, Brad Smith wants to know, do you have an idea how reliable your screen is for poll participants that outright lie, intend to vote Trump by respond Biden? Oh, but respond Biden. Sorry.
That's a great question. You got to be careful not to take some people out, but that is why we do like to data append against a voter file, because we can catch somebody in a lie, like Laura and I were looking at actually just before. Yeah, it was a black female who was 22, I think she was young, and she claimed to be a white woman who was in her 50s, and that she was a Republican. She was not. She was a registered Democrat. It does happen. It absolutely happens. That's why we like the data append, and we do like to verify. It takes us a little bit longer than some others to process our data, because we do these extra steps. Like, I just got binged by Jasper at the Epoch Times. We go over this painstakingly. And I told him, look, this is just how we're going to, we have processes. That doesn't mean we can catch them all. And in fact, there's some times where the decision is really on the line. And if it is on the line, like if it's not overwhelming, I'll leave it, because I give deference to the actual collection. But it does happen. It happens more times than pollsters like to believe. That's also why we don't ask the question, who did you vote for in 2016? Who did you vote for in 2012? People lie. They know what the answer is supposed to be, and the winner tends to get a little bit more outsized. You just saw that in the Detroit News poll the other day, by the way. It was only like Biden +5 in Michigan, but it said that, that the sample was like Trump by 4, from 2016. That's not true. People lie. There's a lot of evidence to demonstrate that people want to tell you they voted for the winner when they did not. Maybe they didn't vote at all. They're lying, and the pollster's not verifying it. So it's a real shame. But that was a really good question.
Well, our people have great questions, great minds, I gotta say. Guard of Liberty. Rich, do you consider Minnesota more winnable for Trump than keeping Wisconsin? How concerned are you with seniors? And seems like the senior revolt you mentioned seemed like it could be the only way for him to lose after we saw those numbers with Hispanics down there.
That was a great question, too. You guys do have great questions. Look, in the end, in a place like Florida, seniors are going to come back. We saw that with DeSantis, We saw that with Bill Nelson. In the end, Rick Scott got 60%. The polls often will miss that. With us, once we went out and targeted a little bit better to get a more representative sample, if you look at our polling, Trump did lead among seniors. It's closer. And his best group was 45 to 64, I believe. I have to go back and make sure, but I'm fairly certain. And then they, battling it out for the 30 to 45, because you have some educated people that are just so lopsided. But overall, Trump's winning that working class 30 to 45 handily. That's, in the end, I suspect that will go, at least revert to the mean. It is, though, what they're trying to do. So they are trying to pick off that's what's a lot of these fake stories that you're going to get. Listen, from now until Election Day, you'll be bombarded with stories that are smears. They're fake, straight fake, meant to do something like this. One of Trump's key groups that he needs to perform well in. All right. So the military, you get the fake Atlantic story, right? Seniors, You get the Trump lied to seniors about the coronavirus story. These are, and then by the way, Biden just happens to have a statement in a press conference lined up, rehearsed, ready to go. They have their ads, they're clipped, they're up in the, right away. It's a total joke. I mean, they're coordinated smears to take some of the vote share down from these groups. However, that is the story of this election. Donald Trump is going to do better with Hispanics. He is going to do shockingly well with black voters. I'm telling you, we have him at 12 in the last national poll. I think that is very doable for him. Maybe even a little bit more, because black men are so open toward Trump. Hispanics, there's really two things happening there. More of them converted to Protestantism in the last 4 years, which results in political maturation, and Protestant Hispanics are much more likely to vote Republican than ethnic Catholic Hispanics. All right? So that's part of it. But in the end, I do think that Minnesota is a richer target than something like, say, Wisconsin. Like, check this out. Just by race, Minnesota is 87% white. All right? That was the 2016 exit polls. All right? 4% black, 4% Hispanic, 5% Asian. Asian is a horrible group for Donald Trump. Whites are only 81, still a lot, but 81 in Wisconsin. Blacks are 2%. Hispanics are 7%. So we could, maybe do some offsetting there, but it's not really a lot. Like Florida, where it could be 17 or 14, and if he does very well, that can offset some of the loss with the white vote. And Asians in Wisconsin are 11%. That's his worst group. 6% higher than they are in Minnesota. All right. And then also the Minnesota voter file analysis, right? It looks like Wisconsin is pretty solidly Republican. It looks like 38.1% is the GOP base, 33.6% is the Dem base, but the 28.3% that's really other is loaded with a lot of those Asian voters. So it's really not true that the Dems are at 33.6. You have to take it with, totality. Exit polls was D+1 in 2016. The only one thing that makes Wisconsin, a lot of these polls, Laura, that I've noticed, Wisconsin is men voted higher rates than women in Wisconsin. It is not uncommon for Wisconsin to be 50-50. 2018, it was 51-49. That's how Walker almost held on. All right, the voter file itself is 47-53, but Wisconsin men voted higher rates. In Minnesota, it's less, but women are a little bit more conservative. Why? White women, white working women. So basically that's where we're at. That's where we're at. All right, so it can be Minnesota he did not play for in 2016. And I think it would have flipped. And it probably would have flipped by a larger margin than a lot of these other ones if he really played for it. Like when he had to visit Michigan over and over and over and over and over, he was erasing a 6 to 8 point deficit. That's how heavily Democratic it was. Pennsylvania, a little less so, but 4 to 6. And Wisconsin, about 6. That's why Michigan was a little tighter. Minnesota started at a much closer baseline in the last, if you average, of course, the presidential cycles. They liked Obama. They did. They liked him less so. It looked more like Pennsylvania, like 6 points. But that was about 2 points more Republican than Michigan. So it could absolutely be. I can conceivably see a scenario where he loses Michigan, he loses Wisconsin. Hell, he may even lose Pennsylvania, although I am not there. I'm just saying. I'm being speculative. But he plucks off Minnesota and New Hampshire, and he gets away with it. I'm not kidding. I'm not joking. Maybe even Maine. I'm not kidding because of the way the coalition is changing. I do think, I'm quoted in a book saying that Minnesota would have probably flipped anyway if it wasn't for the Billy Bush tape. He was killing it, 2-1 margins, on election day when we were polling, something Dana Perino said was very stupid. It wasn't true 4 years ago, and it's not true now. Anybody who votes early is pretty much decided anyway. That is not true. We measured significantly high percentages of voters who had what is known as voter remorse. They voted early. They wish they could have their ballot back. And that happened in Minnesota, which starts voting extremely early. Yeah, I mean, I saw Guard of Liberty's comment. It's not a question, so chill out. It's just a comment. He needs to be there a lot more. It starts earlier. Voting starts earlier. This is why Robert says that he really is surrounded by people who aren't. He's got great political instincts, but he's surrounded by people who are amateurs. A lot of them are amateurs. Look at the damn map. Look at when voting starts, for crying out loud. And some of the places they send him are ludicrous. He's going to kill it in some of these areas. Yeah, you can visit them, but you visit them as secondary. Go to Olmsted first. Go to St. Louis. Then you go visit the Twin Cities. Then you go visit the West. It's just stupid. They're just really, it's not smart. If you look at the Colorado voter file analysis, we gave a little campaign how Trump could win Colorado, how he could have in a really, political stars align. We even drew him out a campaign schedule. That's where you would have to go. Douglas. All right. So let's take a real quick break. Laura's giving me the 11:06 thing. We'll come back. We'll answer more questions right after the break. You're watching Inside the Numbers, folks, with the People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter @Peoples_Pundit. All right. Don't forget, of course, to subscribe to the page on YouTube. To the channel on YouTube. Hit that little notification bell. Let you know when we are live. Don't forget to like the page on Facebook. People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. It is in the YouTube profile. We can do better than this. All right. And then, of course, the best way to support the show is, of course, to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily, which you guys have been doing a great job of, and we love you for it. pbdnews.us/subscribe. pbdnews.us/subscribe. Annual, monthly, and credit tier. Very cool. All right. There's a affordable plan for everybody, right? Get some data for your dollar. Can't promise we'll cover everything. But we can promise that we cover what matters, especially, it's data journalism, folks. We don't get into the palace intrigue crap, all right? And we can promise that we will cover it better than anybody else. You will not find a jobless claims article that is more thorough than the one at People's Pundit Daily every week. We are the most thorough data journalism site. I believe that wholeheartedly, all right? So we'll be back after the break. Here is a two-minute break with Bad Habit from the Grammy-considered Bowen Band.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear overnight, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Slacker, she said. Slacker, because I was running last minute to the water. And something else I had to do. Anyway, so real quick, she won't mind me jumping the line here for this one. If you asked me what my preference is with subscriptions, I would say two things. One, pick the one that's best for you. But if you really want to know, $10 a month is is doable. And that's the best. You know, we have targets, of course. And I'd rather rack up tens, you know. But the credit tiers are cool too, because if you just want to look at some charts and you don't really want to commit to something, then you just buy the credits as you go and use them as you go. All right. You'll have to use a lot, though, to do things like the maps that's going to go up this weekend. You'll have to do a lot, maybe 3 credits. I don't know, they're like $1 a credit, though. So it's not like a lot, but I mean, you could burn them pretty quick using them. All right. But for regular articles, it's $1 and it's $1 per credit. An article is a single credit. All right. Let's go, Laura. Let's go.
All right. Okay, Jack Lawton wants to know, Rich, could you please talk about Nebraska District 2? What's the situation there? Could be very important. And also wants to know, isn't Trump saying he is going to win Minnesota, similar to how the Dems say that they might win Georgia or Texas and Texas?
All right. Let me pull up a little poll in Nebraska too. All right. So Nebraska 2, very, very close. Okay. And I can't find it now. And there was a couple I gathered up today. Oklahoma's 5th was another one. Really should not have gone to a Republican, but another one similar where these burbs have been trending Democratic. And it's not as Republican of a district as it used to be. Nebraska 2 is like a hair. It's really a battleground now. I mean, I'm looking at like 1 to 3 points. It's just that Republicans have a little bit of an edge. It's very, it's something that has been going on for a long time. And actually, I think where is it? That's a shame. I had shared something a while back that was great. And I would love to do, I mean, really, I'd have to do a whole show on it. But Nebraska, RRH, I like them. All right. They did a great number on Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. The bottom line is, folks, it's going to be very, very close. I think that Trump will get it by like 1 or 2 points, but in the long run, this is not a district that Republicans can take for granted anymore. Here's the problem with what Democrats did with a district like Nebraska 2. Because there are more like techie people. It's the industries that are moving in there. All right. It's not, your very traditional working class or, you think of Nebraska, you think of, farmers and stuff like that. It's not that. It's the socio-cultural change in Nebraska too has been it's been a big deal. All right. I mean, there's companies that are moving in that are professional industries. All right. So Gallup is there, First National Bank, Ameritrade, Green Plains, Physicians Mutual, Werner Enterprise, Mutual of Omaha, Union Pacific Railroad, not that bad, Omaha, Berkshire Hathaway, Valmont. I mean, there are Fortune 500 firms that are in Omaha, Nebraska. All right. And what's the Air Force base? There's an Air Force. So that actually is still the largest one. And Strategic Air Command is there, Laura. They got established there in 1948. All right. McCain carried this district, I mean, it's just not the same district it used to be. He carried the suburbs by like 20 something points. I mean, the exurbs that are around Gretna, it's different. There are more professional class people that have been moving in there. It swung. It looked good for Democrats in 2018. But they keep falling short on some of these targets. Hillary Clinton, very close in some of these areas. They just fell a little bit short. I don't think Romney got this district by like 7.7%, 7 something. All right, if I remember correctly. So he had a nice, healthy margin at least, but there was already a move from McCain with Mitt Romney. You could already see it, and it was pretty significant. All right, and then by the time it was Trump v. Clinton, it was looking possible that she could carry it by a few points. But in the end, it didn't happen, right? So let me pull up. Hold on, give me 1 second. I have in Nebraska too. They're really broken into different regions, but all right. So let's look at what they are. Non-Hispanic white, 72.8%. Black voters, 9.5%. Asian voters, the worst group in this district for Republicans, 3.4%. Hispanics, 11.2%. Pretty damn close, folks, now to a national electorate. Just slightly better for Republicans because it's a few points more white than most projections are showing, even though we're at 71% white. Could be more. I could be wrong. All right. And it's a little less African American. So, but again, let's look at where is, let me look through my handy dandy little sheet here. A doctorate degree, 1.5%. Professional school degree, 3%. Master's degree, almost 10%. Bachelor's degree, 26%. Some college, which is a great group for Trump, 30.3. High school graduate, 20.9. That both of those are good groups for Trump. Less than high school, not a good group for Trump, 8.9%. All right. So you can also get an idea there too. Married is 50.5. 10 years ago, even that was almost 6 in 10. And of course, married women are much more likely to vote Republican than are single women, which is single women, particularly single minorities, are the ones who caused the huge gender gap. If you look at married white women, they actually tend to swing Republican by a few points. All right. So it's just not the place. It's getting younger, more single, more professional. And that's at the heart of that. All right. So, where is my little vote tracker? So in 2016, Bacon beat Ashford by about 4,000 votes. In 2018, by about 5,000, but the turnout was down, of course. All right. Democrats have gotten very close in some of these races. In 2014, by the way, Ashford beat Terry. All right. So Terry was the incumbent who had beat Ewing in 2012. And then Ashford beat Terry. Bacon beat Ashford. I mean, it swings back and forth. It's kind of like the district in New Hampshire. What's that? The 2nd congressional district in New Hampshire, where it was just a Shea Porter rematch constantly. All right. For a while, they were doing that there too. Trump, however, underperformed some of these congressional races where Republicans were able to hold on. So Trump got a huge margin statewide, but he only won this district by 6,000 votes. 6,400. Very close. So, I mean, it's just the changes. Let me get, we have that RRH thing again? I bet you it's in I'm going to send it to you guys. All right. RRH, because I could do a whole show on it, but this is a good write up on it. I have it in my search thing. There it is right there. I'll send it out. Hopefully it went out to everyone, even Periscope, yes. Right? Yes. Yep. Even Periscope, let it go through. Check that out. Read that while you have a chance. What do I think is going to happen? I think we're looking at a Trump 1.5. All right. But I had to explain why I don't like just saying Trump 1.5 because I'm so smart. You guys can't understand me. That's how Nate Slimer talks.
Don't try to play me off like that. I just want 3-minute answers, not 10 minutes. I know. You say some of them need detailed background. I get it. So Sir J. Pat says, what changes to immigration policy would Rich make in order to have it be more equitable, political for both sides?
That is a great switch mics. So that's a great question, and I got asked that in 2016 when they won. Then nothing happened. They took some of it, but the bottom line is chain migration has to end. All right. For those who don't understand chain migration, I will pull up an article from People's Pundit Daily, and I will give you something to chew on. Okay. Migration Trump had the general idea, right, that chain migration is a major problem, not just from a national security point of view, but basically from an assimilation point of view. So we need to move from a family-based system to a merit-based system. It's overwhelmingly supported by the American people, and chain migration is what has done the demographics of this country in without allowing it to be done at the ballot box. All right. For those who don't know, the term chain migration refers to the endless chain of foreign nationals who are allowed to immigrate to the United States because citizens and lawful permanent residents are allowed to sponsor their non-nuclear family members. So your second cousin removed, it's ridiculous. Annual immigration has at least tripled since chain migration began in the 1960s. All right, though some estimates are actually even higher. For instance, though, in 2001, the United States admitted 1,064,318 immigrants, roughly 4 times greater than the 1950s. All right, FAIR notes that enough people to populate or even to create a major city the size of Chicago, Illinois. Only 5 years after chain migration began, which is a relatively new concept. Democrats pretend like this is like an American principle. And I actually heard Jim Acosta say that like an idiot, talking about the Statue of Liberty is weeping. That's Ellis Island, you tool, which closed before chain migration ever became a policy. Oh my God. What a freaking idiot. These people are so historically illiterate. All right. But only 5 years after it began, the number of immediate relative admissions nearly doubled from 32,714 in 1965 to 79,213 in 1970. 36 years later, folks, the number of immediate relatives admitted was more than 13 times higher at 500,000 people. All right. It has led to millions being consigned to visa waiting lists, and chain migration further incentivizes illegal immigration, which has been exacerbated by programs like DACA. All right. I'll let you guys read more into it, but that's number one. Chain migration is the most important part of this. The most important part. All right. So I'll send that out for you guys to read in a little bit more, but generally speaking, the answer to that question is, first, it has to become more of a merit-based system instead of a family-based system. Trump was right about that. And chain migration is the primary driver of this. It's got to go. It's got to go. And there's just also too, I don't want to get into a legal debate here. I'm not a lawyer, but I do know enough about American history to know that the court case that everybody uses for anchor babies, no better way to put it, is not right. Is not right. In that case, he was a child of lawful permanent residents. They weren't citizens, but they were lawful permanent residents. We have abandoned the term, which the senator who wrote this, subject to the jurisdiction of, specifically meant loyalty to the United States. And that was thought to mean what it meant. They didn't think they would have to carve it out anymore. They didn't think when they were writing it that it meant, like, are you stupid? Looks like Facebook killed the chain migration thing. Go to YouTube and grab it. It'll be in the comment section. All right. So sometimes one of these guys will block me from putting other things up. But yes, right, Jim. His parents were workers who were permanent legal residents, and they were subject to our laws, subject to the jurisdiction of, which is why, man, you talk about Kamala Harris's, whether she's even eligible or not, and the media flips out on you. But the fact of the matter is, Kamala Harris's parents were not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. That we just have now abandoned that as a requirement, which has led to anchor babies. Anybody who's born here within the walls, within the boundaries, within the borders, that is not what our founders intended. It's just not. And it's never been settled by the Supreme Court. They've kicked the can. I'm sorry. It's true. Whether people want to admit it or not, it's true. And when you read the primary source documents, it's blatant. They just didn't think in so many of these things, Laura, that we would be this dumb to like challenge something that's black and white and like self-evident. They just, it's true. Apparently they didn't realize they would have to spell it out for simpletons.
No, they didn't.
You know, further.
They're all rolling over in their
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get the next one in.
There you go. I'm on. All right. At Persuasion Pirate from Periscope wants to know, looking at the numbers today, which states look to be likely pickups or losses for Trump?
Yeah, so I always like my own data better than I like anybody else's. And I'll have my own in the Rust Belt soon. I don't think, let me put it this way. I don't think a lot of these states that were Trump states are really seriously in play. All right. Florida is going to go to Donald Trump. North Carolina, Rasmussen poll out today. It's 2 points. I'm betting it's probably more like 4. All right. But whatever. I know Rasmussen does, but they wait how they waiting till the last exit polls, and that's fine. All right. But you could see tremendous crossover support for Donald Trump in that poll. It is not uncommon for a Republican. The exit polls will say 16%, but it's really like closer to 20. They have black voter shares at 25% for Donald Trump in North Carolina. That absolutely can be true. People are going to flip out, but there are some states where the black voting population is much more conservative than the rest of the nation. So it shocks people when they see it. But like Pennsylvania, it's absolutely possible Donald Trump can win 18 to 22% of the black vote in Pennsylvania. It is absolutely true that he could win 20 to 25% in the state of North Carolina. They just don't know. And that's why the exit polls are always so bad in North Carolina. They don't know how to poll the South and the Southwest. They don't even bother in exit polls. I mean, these are like graduate students trying to get credit. So they go to the most populated areas they can get to get as many samples as they can get. They do not do what Gallup used to do, walk down the old dirt road, right? They just don't do it. All right. But I don't think he could pick up Nevada. I just don't. I mean, he could if it was like a landslide. I don't see it. I think John McLaughlin is running him astray there. All right. But whatever. I mean, I wouldn't cede anything. I would just use my resources like we were talking about before. Minnesota is a much more likely pickup state for him. Much more likely. It doesn't make any sense that they would prioritize the Silver State over the Lone Star State, over the North Star State. Excuse me. It doesn't make any sense. Doesn't by demographics, doesn't by voting patterns. All right. Another one, like I said, I really wanted to go over if the damn thing wasn't updating, was New Hampshire. These shifts that we all went over, we're looking at the Iron Range. We're looking at every area of Pennsylvania except for the Southeast. And even in the Southeast, we had Bucks and Berks that looked better for Republicans and Trump than I expected them to. Hillary Clinton carried Bucks County. Not by a lot, but she carried it. I expected Biden to do better there. But Michigan was always going to be very hard for him to hold. Wisconsin, you really won't know where some of these states are going until later because Democrats appear to have an artificial edge in early polling there. And that's even true of our own polling. They have more decided voters off the bat than Republicans do. And for Republicans to eke wins out in these states, eke by like 1 to 5 points, not really eke some cases, they have to do very well with those voters that truly are the persuadable share of the electorate. But they don't tell you where they're going until later. All right? I don't know what the Doreen's... Don't even listen to that, Doreen. Just ignore that. That's the answer to that question. That's ridiculous. All right, moving on.
I won't even have to copy that one.
And just to tell everybody, I mean, that's just crazy. There's some speculation in Politico that Trump's going to lose the evangelical Christian religious right. That they live in freaking fantasy lands. Just like they go through this every damn year with South Carolina and Georgia. Georgia is more competitive than it used to be, but it's not there yet. It's just not there yet.
Ready? All right. Omen Owl, how much does voter identity tied to a party change once they vote for a different party in 2016?
Can you say that first part of that again? It just glitched.
Sure. How much does voter identity tied to a party change once they vote for a different party in 2016?
Right. So that's actually a really good question. Voter registration is more static, meaning it doesn't change as much and as frequently as reported self-identification or a party affiliation, right? So if you call people in North Carolina is a great example. There are tons of Democrats who vote Republican at the presidential level. If you poll them at the presidential level and ask them what party they're for, they may tell the pollster Republican, but they are not. They're registered Democrats. That is what caused Nate Cohen to make a fool out of himself trying to read the early vote tea leaves last time. He just made a complete ass out of himself because he doesn't know the state. Like Barnes and I were saying before, they don't know the ancestral heritage of these voters, so they're clueless. That's why when you do see such big shifts in voter registration, it matters. And that's what I was trying to get through a little bit this week when we talked about Minnesota and Pennsylvania. In Minnesota, the Iron Range is going big for Donald Trump. It did. He carried a lot of it last time, but that northeastern region of the Iron Range really held it back a little bit. They're not now. It's an outward revolt, but they're not changing their, register. Minnesota's different anyway. The registrations aren't there in Minnesota, but they're not going to really change their identification as a Democrat, what they consider themselves to be. They just will say the National Party has abandoned them. In Pennsylvania and in North Carolina and now even in Florida, the numbers in Florida, nobody this year, guys, have you noticed that none of the left-wing pundits, none of the Nates, the Dave Wassermans, the Larry Sabatos, none of them want to talk about voter registration? Every year they love voter registration. They love talking about the surge Democrats have in voter registration. They can't talk about it this year because they're net negative almost everywhere. In Florida, that under Barack Obama, a lot of that shift and that closing of the gap, it was huge. All right. That was done, a lot of that from whites, being Democrats, older whites, and saying, you know what, now I'm just a Republican. But that trend ended. And the continuing shift does not explain that. So that's really bad news for Democrats. And now, as you can see here, my little trusty thing, Democrats they have the smallest advantage since 1972, since partisan tracking began. North Carolina moved 4 points so far. So the answer to the question is, when those registration changes actually show up, it's significant because people will vote and swing and and then not change their actual registration because it's more static. If they do, then that they're starting to become solid voters. And that's why Pennsylvania, Laura, when we went over the other day, that's why that matters so much, because that tells me Erie County, it's not going back. Luzerne, some of these other places, they're not swinging them back. They're beat. They better win more in Chester, Delaware, and carry Bucks, which, by the way, was a net to Republicans this time. I mean, so, that's why it matters that much.
All right, Angie DC. Do Biden's people actually know how poorly he is doing in some swing states, or are they buying the the public polls? And then no, wait. There's part 2. And what does Trump need to do to regain the seniors he's lost? Sorry, before there was a typo, so I was trying to read it.
Listen, this is Joe Biden's biggest fear. I'm going to type it up right now and put it on a banner. Okay. This is Joe Biden's biggest fear. And it's sad, but it's true. And when we were in the early stages of the pandemic, even Fox did a story quoting some of them. Folks, they were jumping up and down praying for 500,000 dead Americans. I'm not kidding. You want to know how seniors will shoot back? That's your answer. All right. That would be, and this is what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are deadly afraid of. They would rather more Americans die and not take the vaccine than Trump to get a vaccine before the election, so significant numbers of votes are cast in the election. I'm not kidding. I wish I was, but I'm not. How do I know? Listen to Kamala Harris's own statements the other day. Well, I don't know that I would take it. It's been developed pretty quickly. Well, everybody wanted to take Joe Biden's swine flu vaccine, which he missed the targets on. 6 months, something that was not novel, was well known. They blew it. They blew the target. This will be historic. I know I'm not allowed to talk about it, and I wish I could, but the vaccine is coming. It's going to come soon. I know the company that's leading it. I know people who are working on it. It's coming. And it will be FDA approved. I mean, it will be record pace. And that would leave a lot of seniors feeling a lot better. And that would help, no doubt. The second part of that, though, is I don't want to downplay Joe Biden's strengths in some areas. I went over this with Laura. We go over with the polling, and I say to Laura, look at how he's doing with these voters. There are voters that Joe Biden is doing relatively well with. That he has strengths. It's just that I think the media is missing the bigger picture, which could hurt Trump in some of the Rust Belt states like Michigan that are hard to hold on to, because that's where white voters are still huge chunks. All right. So if Trump falls with white voters, he'll have a harder time holding on. But if he's increasing with Hispanics, it means he's ahead in Florida by a significant. That's why he is, by the way, trying to go to the Silver State, because if he can get a better share of Hispanic votes in Clark County and in Reno, then he could put it. I'm not saying he can't carry it in a good election. He can. I'm just saying that Clark County has 200,000 ballots they could fraudulently stuff in a box if they wanted to. It's a lot. 68% of the vote, 85% of the dirty rolls. Disproportionately the problem. So I'm skeptical, and that's a Harry Reid's machine over there. I mean, obviously it's still humming. I mean, we saw it in 2018, so, and the economy is so depressed over there. So I don't want to downplay Joe Biden's strengths, because he does have strengths. Because it's the media. He is an idiot. And we all know that Joe Biden is senile. We all know that. To pretend and insult your intelligence that he is not is ludicrous. The truth of the matter is the political class wanted Kamala Harris. And by political, I mean the incestuous relationship, them all together. The political class, media, politicians, think tanks, bureaucracies, they wanted Kamala Harris. Think back to when she first started to run, folks. They tried coronating her. Nate Silver actually published an incredibly, it was statistically handicapped about why Kamala could actually perform better among these working class groups. I mean, she had just won a single Senate race in a very blue state, and Nate Silver was trying to make the argument that she could win back the Rust Belt. I mean, it was totally ludicrous, but they were totally on board for this woman. She just proved not to be ready for prime time. So, in their grand plan is to get this senile, dumb, old white man elected by telling the story they want to tell. Keep him hidden as much as he could from the public. And then when he gets elected, he is not going to serve as president very long if he wins. Everyone should know that. And I want to say that even though it's unrelated. But everyone should understand that a vote for Joe Biden is a vote for Kamala Harris. She will be the president. In their weird, twisted kind of mind, they felt like the country shunning a white woman, we should be punished for that. And the best way to punish us is to install, because there's no other way to say it, install the nation's first black woman president. And they can't do it at the ballot box. Or at least they don't believe they can. I actually think a black woman can be elected president. Just not that black woman. She was very people didn't like her. I'm talking about Democrats. They did not like her. That's why she lost. She was fake. There aren't too many more fake people out there than Kamala Harris. Joe Biden, maybe. But I'm not doing this to slam the Democratic ticket. I'm simply saying everybody should understand that. All right. So they're going to do it the way they want to do it. All right. So, but I don't want to take away from his strengths because he does have them there. And I think there's just that we need to talk about both sides of the coin. So yeah, Biden is doing better among white voters, but Trump is doing better among Hispanics and black voters. In fact, he is hitting the targets the Republicans had cited as their mid to long-term goals in the 2012 autopsy. They should be jumping up and down. They should be doing cartwheels because Donald Trump achieved what the Mitt Willard Romneys and the Paul Ryans could not.
All right. Vince Locker had a question from yesterday, and I'm going to combine it with the one today. Big Pennsylvania, cover that area too, maybe? And then also wanted to know, where do you believe Republicans have the best chance to retake the House seats? You mentioned Republicans made nomination mistakes. I'd love to see Spanberger in Virginia District 7 ousted.
She is a spook burger. Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
And before the Daily Beast or some other dishonest piece of trash rag clips that, spook obviously in the sense that she worked for the CIA. I mean, yes. She is one of the deep state Democrats that ran a PSYOP on the electorate, helped to run a PSYOP on the electorate to take out a Republican incumbent, that one being David Bratt. There are just some districts where Republicans didn't pick great people, folks. I'm just telling you. All right. But look, Omaha's 5th. That looks very competitive. I actually thought incumbency might hold there, considering it's starting to look a lot like Nebraska 2. All right. Or at least its trend is looking like Nebraska 2. But right there, you have Bice up 1, even though they're like, it's a tie. It's not a tie. We do rounding to the nearest whole number in this business. It is not. I mean, it is a statistical tie. But if Horn was above Bice, you better damn sure bet that that headline would have read, Horn leads Bice by 1 in tight race or something. Instead, it's like deadlocked 50 days before the election. All right. Here's the problem that Horn in this district is having. Bice is getting 80% base support and only losing 6.3% of Republicans to Horn. But Bice is taking 14%. Bice is taking 13% of the Democratic base, and Horn only has 76%. 14.2% of Republicans are still undecided in this poll. All right. So Bice is taking about 7 points more in the crossover vote. And if you look at who remains undecided, they're Republicans. They're those finicky Republicans. Sorry, ladies. I'm talking about you in many respects. They're finicky. And then the rest are independents that only really make up about 9%, 10% on election day in that district. All right. And they do favor Horn, but they're so tiny. Republicans outnumber, and when those Republicans decide, this is looking like a 5 to 10 point route, depending on the margin of error. So Horn's going down, it looks like. All right. Word of caution. Florida 27 is competitive. All right. But again, this poll was conducted by the National Republican Congressional Committee. It was not done by Jim McLaughlin like the last time. Salazar's campaign released in 2018, a poll showing her beating Donna Shalala by 6 points. They did that because she had friends in media, because she used to be a journalist, Salazar, and they were trying to kill my candidate, Angie Chirino. They were trying to tell Republican voters that Angie Chirino couldn't win. In fact, and I gave the polling to Mark Caputo just to prove the damn point, Angie Chirino was running a few points better than Maria Salazar was running against Donna Shalala. However, they were both losing. It's just that Chirino was losing within the margin, about 4 points, 3.5, 4 points. Shalala was beating Salazar outside of the margin at 6 points. And she lost by 6 points. Hat tip, Mark. Where's my hat tip? But I saw Jim McLaughlin play those games, so now I tell you to take this poll with a grain of salt, even though it wasn't done by him. I could see this poll being right. Here's why. Shalala is not very popular with Hispanics there anymore. She kind of like rode the good Democratic wave with Hispanics. They're struggling statewide with Hispanics. She's killing it with the Cuban vote, and she's winning the overall Hispanic vote by a little bit. So I can see that becoming a more competitive district. Anna Pauline is making that race with Charlie Crist. That could be a competitive district. Laura Loomer's got a fringe candidate and is up against, well, I applaud her for winning a primary the way she did. Matt Gaetz absolutely helped that, because the Gaetz family, for those of you who don't know in Florida, they are Florida Republican royalty. His father was the Senate Majority Leader. All right. He's a good guy too. All right. As a matter of fact. So I know
if he was a kingmaker.
They're like, his dad was a big deal. Okay. And he always treated us very well. Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, we worked on initiatives. My wife years ago used to work for this. She had a state employee job. I'm not going to tell you what. It's none of anybody's damn business. But, at that time, he was pushing a bill to basically incentivize Florida state employees to foster or adopt. So there were why? Because the process, they were bogged down on these rigorous vetting processes. And if you worked for the state in certain positions, you already went through them. Oh man. So that it was a great program. DNA. Yeah, I mean, right. So it was a great program, and I believed in it too. So we covered it. And he was always good with us. Matt is he's more controversial than his father was, for sure. But, that's the era of Donald Trump. Everybody's always a little bit more controversial. Sean Parnell is running stronger than we thought against Connor Lamb. We actually saw an internal poll. Connor Lamb was down by 6 points, which is, take internals with a grain always, but I can kind of see that happening. I just thought that district was gone. And polling districts, somebody had asked a similar question, which gets to this question on Twitter. Why don't you just poll congressional districts? It seems that it can give you a much better idea. That's absolutely true. We did do that. We do that to get a better idea of a specific, state. We may pluck out a few districts and oversample them to get a better idea. However, districts aren't huge populations, and if a lot of people are polling them, you basically poll them out. It's called fatigue, all right? So like everybody and their mother in 2018 wanted to poll these districts. It was in the media. It was ridiculous because you get hired by clients and you're trying to poll the district and you can measure the fatigue, so it was a little bit annoying actually. But some of these populations are not that big. So you're looking at very small sample sizes. So even though you think, well, it's a smaller population, theoretically, it should be a less sampling error. It's not if you're looking at small samples anyway. Yes, theoretically it is, but it's not as easy to do as you might think. All right. But there's a bunch. And Dino Rossi's seat in Washington, that primary vote was huge. We'll put out a target list probably. I'm sure we will. We'll put out a target list. But the idea that the House could not swing is nuts. It's nuts. The incumbent party who gets creamed in the first term, midterm, almost always recovers at least some seats. Even if they don't retake the chamber itself, they always recover at least some seats. All right.
All right. So just a little side note, Spy, I knew you were joking. Don't worry. I'm sorry if my sarcasm didn't go across well in typing, but Spy the Liar has a question. Have you noticed how the mainstream media is setting us up for Trump winning on election day, but Biden surging back to win because of mail-in ballots?
Yes. That's what I've been trying to explain to you guys the whole time. That's absolutely, absolutely correct. All right. The bottom line is you're being conditioned. That's what they're doing to you. You're being conditioned.
And they're good at it.
Only one election in our lifetime was not decided on election night. They're conditioning you to start thinking about presidential elections like California. All right. And they are, look, Mark Elias just jumped up and down over the court case in Arizona. That's a devastating blow to the Republicans in Arizona. It is. There's no way around it. They're allowing ballot curing. Ballot curing is when there is no signature on a provisional ballot. A provisional ballot. There's either no signature or the signature does not match. They will count those votes. Theoretically, you're supposed to go through affidavits. These people run around forging affidavits. They have armies of activists collecting these affidavits. The committee that winds up reviewing them, they double as activists. On Tuesday, they're election officials. On Thursday, they're at the local Democratic Party meeting. It's a joke. It's a total joke. He's jumping up and down because he specializes in election thievery. And if he's celebrating, damn sure, rest assured, it is no good. It's no good. All right. So there's a ton though more, which we could go in, but there's possibly one in I do think there's definitely one in Iowa. There could be two in California. I saw the thing about, does Mike Garcia keep it? He's actually looking a lot better than people thought, but we don't know yet. We don't have any hard data. I may poll that race myself. It's possible. There's more, because there was more. There was like 3 more districts in California that were arguably more favorable to Republicans than California 25. And there is definitely, like Mike Garcia, Laura, maybe have been the beginning of that trend with Hispanics voting more Republican than they have in the past, because Garcia became the first Republican candidate to win the Hispanic vote in that district. It's really interesting. Could be one. There's one in PA. There's one in Jersey. I mean, we could do a whole show on this, and we probably should. But let's grab another couple because we're running out of time.
All right. Daniel Van Heeren just wants to know, could you give a quick run through of what are the battleground states and how you think each of the battleground states will go? And Caleb also wants to know which Rust Belts is Trump most vulnerable to losing. So
yeah, I mean, some of these are getting a little bit redundant, but the bottom line is this is like a 4 or 5 state race at this point, maybe 6. All right. There are about, it depends on how many you count, guys, but a lot of there's more under Donald Trump, not under Mitt Willard Romney or other traditional Republicans. There's only about 8 real battleground states, 6 real battleground states. I'm saying there's only 6 or 8 that really matter at this point because I think I know where the other ones are going. But the ones that matter, we're polling right now, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. But the Rust Belt, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, and New Hampshire and Maine may turn out to be more important than we think. I do not think North Carolina, I get the hiccups. I do not think Joe Biden is leading in North Carolina. I do not think Joe Biden is going to win in the state of Florida, especially not with that kind of Hispanic support. Not happening. Because those whites are going to hurt. They are. Even if they hurt to 56, 58, it doesn't matter if you're still doing that well with Hispanics. And you will carry it by 3 points. It'll be actually a relatively large win. I will be shocked. All right. Georgia's not competitive. I mean, it is competitive. It's just not ready to go yet. Arizona is a question mark, and I did see some of those. I would love to poll Maricopa myself, and I may do it just for what's and giggles. Because we're polling for the Epoch Times, Laura and I were talking yesterday about what we were going to do for crowdfunding, because Barnes and I really wanted to do some crowdfunding with you guys, and there was a lot of interest in it. So if I'm doing the Rust Belt and national polling with Epoch, maybe we'll get a Florida poll. We'll crowdfund, and if you guys can fund it, then we'll do it. I'll do it for as cheap as I can. And then if there's like another one or something, maybe, and if it's really successful, maybe we'll do Arizona, or maybe even just Maricopa County. All right, just to show where we are in that particular county, because it's the all important county. It really is. Yeah, so I would just say, Trafalgar just had Trump up by 3. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked at all. So Jeff Van Drew versus Amy Kennedy. I think Jeff Van Drew is going to hold that seat. All right, that was one of those districts that really should not have gone Democratic. In an election with a first-term incumbent midterm in the House, there are always those seats that go, and then in the end, you really can't hold on to them. And if they're going to be taken out, they're taken out in their first challenge, their first incumbent challenge. Incumbency can build up over time, but last time incumbency meant nothing. So almost nothing in the House. All right. So, it's just the way it is. So I'm looking at the Rust Belt, folks, and I'm looking at white working class states, because where Biden is making gains with white voters, it's not those working class states. I mean, it's not those working class voters. So a state like Maine, New Hampshire, Trump is doing better among those groups than he did against Hillary Clinton. He's doing better. He's got Biden at like 27% at white working class. Hillary Clinton was 32. That was our target for her. All right. So that would mean, even though Joe Biden might do a little bit better in some southern parts of New Hampshire, it wouldn't be enough. He can't really pull any more votes out of Bangor. He just can't. In Portland, so those are the states that could turn out being a shock. So we'll see. But, some of them get a little bit redundant, but I hope that was a little bit more thorough. And I will make a lot more, come Tuesday, Wednesday next week, I'll start to make a lot more definitive statements on what I think is going on in the Rust Belt. All right.
All right. So we have Sir J. Pat wants to know, in 2018, GOP won 2 Minnesota House seats, but they also lost 2 Minnesota House seats. What do you think about the chances of winning those 2 seats back?
Oops. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I think there's a real, realignment happening. It's possible not 2, but it is possible about 1. But not 2, because that is the realignment that we're talking about. And Republicans have done themselves quite dirty on one thing in the era of Trump. Paul Ryan trotted his privileged white out there, and, he heard the voice of the people. Nobody else heard. Now I hear you too. And then he proceeded to be a very typical, traditional, big business, war, military, cut social program Republican. In the Rust Belt, the voters that like Donald Trump don't like people like Paul Ryan. They don't like Republicans who want to give tax cuts to the wealthy and take away your Social Security, or cut Medicare, cut Medicaid. They hate these kinds of people. They feel like all of the DC class, their buddies are getting something. Yes, we know it costs money, but it's the only damn thing that we get. You're not taking it away. They are not traditional Republican voters. So it would have been easier if Republicans would have truly heard the voice that Paul Ryan said he heard too, and would have not resisted Trump at every step, at every turn, around every corner, when it came to evolving the Republican Party as a national coalition. But they did, because the dirty secret is, many of these Republicans that go out there and you see on Fox shilling like a villain for Donald Trump, they will talk trash behind his back about him. Right, Laura? Mm-hmm. They will talk trash. They'll be in our friend's living room asking for, a check for their PAC or asking for a check for their committee and saying, or dreaming, fantasizing about the day Donald Trump is gone again. They can't stand him. And they're liars. So they weren't really willing to allow him to change this party, to mature this party into a national coalition. They weren't, and they resisted it. And they hurt themselves bad doing that, because they could have been the party of, the working class through the conservative, traditional conservative, like a Ted Cruz kind of, they really could have had a big tent. They blew it. They really blew it. And it wouldn't have been such a bleed in the suburbs if those figures like Paul Ryan said, no, there's still a place for us in the party. We are just, a different, bigger tent party now than we used to be. That would have been the correct message to expand your party. No, don't go anywhere. You are not Democrats. That's crazy. We all still share the same values. All right. Yeah, Handel has a real, I think Handel has a chance too, but we'll see, because McBath did so well and the money situation is different there. But, we'll get into it. We'll get into that another time.
So I just want the people to know that I'm going to give you like a few minutes later on and record you and ask a bunch of questions, because you have tons of them to play catch up.
Okay.
And then we'll just
we'll do like a quick
blast
tomorrow
it.
maybe or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Dem KR, how does Rasmussen square their national polling showing a statistical tie and their state polling in Michigan and Wisconsin showing an 8-point Biden lead?
That's a good question. They give me anything I want, if I just haven't had a chance to really go over everything in detail. But they are weighting toward prior exits. All right. And then their national poll is weighting basically to the Consumer Sentiment Index, or what is known as the Survey of Consumers, which is conducted by the University of Michigan. That's why they really don't have a Republican lean. They're just more realistic. They're using Survey of Consumers as a benchmark for their national polling, and they're using exit polls as their last. So, you got to at least credit them, because, and I mean that, because they're not putting their finger on their thumb on the scales and saying, you know what, if the electorate really looked like this, then Trump would be doing better or worse or whatever. That is what a lot of these other public pollsters do. It's just that the Survey of Consumers is different. It's just different. All right, than what they're trying. It's a different benchmark to weight by. They may be right in the end. Barack Obama only won the national vote by a few points in 2012, but he clobbered Mitt Romney in Michigan, 6 points, 8 points. In Iowa, 6 points. Ohio, 2. But, that's, it could be, it's possible. It certainly is possible. I think we're going to find a different result. All right, so it's 12:03. We're going to do that tomorrow. All right, so let's wrap this up. All great questions, folks. All fantastic questions, really. That's why I love doing this with you guys, actually, on Freewheeling Friday. I think Laura's got a great idea. She'll type it up on a Google Doc or something, and I'll just run through them. We should do that. We definitely should. All right, but it's already 12:03, so I'm going to start to kick rocks. Don't forget to like the page on Facebook, all right? Don't forget to like it. A lot of people are following it too. Like it on Facebook, okay? And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, People Spend It Daily. Hit the notification bell to let you know when we are about to go live, so you do not miss the beginning, all right? And I will do a little bit better of a job getting them programmed and up and out. So the notification, it's lagging, people are saying. They're getting the notification from YouTube too late. I think Google's playing games. I do. So we'll just have to try to get them up a little bit earlier. All right. And then, of course, the best way to support the show is to subscribe to People Spend It Daily, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us YouTube.com/subscribe. We absolutely do. I just saw it. I just clicked on it. Look, we love you guys for it. No doubt surge in subscriptions since we started the show. We have our targets, so let's hit them, but we love you for it. We really do. And we'll see you back on Monday for Inside the Numbers. Actually, no, sorry. That's right. No Inside the Numbers on the days that What Are the Odds are on. So what are the odds with Barnes and Barris 2 p.m. Monday, Eastern Standard Time. And then Inside the Numbers, 10 a.m. on Tuesday, Eastern Standard Time. And then, like Laura said, she'll make me do that little rattle off lightning round. All right. I got the Don Smith Show tomorrow. Don't miss that at 12:30. Noon, Don Smith Show starts. But I go on at 12:30. I'll tweet it out as always. Don't miss that. All right. And we'll see you guys on the flip side. Have a safe weekend. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers, folks. All right.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for knives to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow